Hey guitar geeks, Guitar Guts back. Today I'm going to show you how to replace the magnet in the back of your humbucking pickup. It's fun to experiment around with different types of pickups to get different tones and different feels out of your guitar, but that can get quite expensive really fast because humbuckers are not cheap. However, replacing the magnet in the back of your humbucker can completely change the tone and the feel of the pickup, and the magnets are a fraction of the cost of what a new humbucker would cost you. And it's fairly easy to do. There's a few precautions you need to take, but I'll show you how to do it. I've got another video that details the types of magnets, and of course you've realized by now that this is not the type of magnet that we're talking about. We're talking about this type of magnet, a bar magnet. Most of these are made out of an alloy of aluminum, nickel, and cobalt, and that's why they're called Alnico pickups, if I'm pronouncing that right. This one, however, is made out of ceramic mix, and you can get magnets, two or three different types of ceramic magnets, and then there's a ton of different types of Alnico magnets. You have Alnico 2, which is very popular, and Alnico 5, which are probably the two most popular magnets to use. But then there's also A4, which is a very interesting magnet used in a lot of bridge humbuckers, and A3, which is commonly used in neck pickups. And you've got A8, which is relatively newcomer, which has got some very interesting uses. I've made a separate video telling you what all the different characters are that you can get out of the magnets, and I'm not going to go into that again here. What I'm going to show you how to do is how to replace the magnet that's in the back of your humbucker with one that you're wanting to try out. So there is a risk involved here. You have to be really careful when you get into the back of the pickup not to damage the copper wire, because if you break one of those little coil wires, then your pickup is dead in the water and it's very hard to fix. So there is a risk, although I've done this hundreds of times and I've never actually destroyed a pickup, but I am really careful when I do it. So in order to get into the back of the pickup, first, if you have a covered pickup that has a nickel cover on it, you'd have to remove that cover first because it'll be soldered to the back plate and you can't remove the back plate without removing the cover. I usually don't bother replacing the magnets in covered pickups unless I just want to take that cover off anyway. But if you have an uncovered humbucker like this, the only thing that really has the back plate stuck on are 4 screws and then a little bit of wax here on the cloth wrap around those coils. You'll need to loosen that because that'll grip that back plate as well. And what I like to use is a razor blade. And you'll notice, I know I'm doing it backwards. I'm doing that on purpose. I take the razor blade, stick it down in between the back plate and that cloth wrap, and I pull backwards because I don't want to cut the cloth. I just want to loosen it up a little bit and get it unstuck from that metal back plate before I start messing with the screws. So I run down that several times, make sure that's unstuck and can be pulled out a little bit from the back plate, and then you're ready to go. Now the only thing holding the back plate on here are 4 screws, Phillips head screws. The screws whose bottoms you see sticking through the back plate right here don't hold the back plate on, so you don't need to mess with those. They will stay with the bobbins when you take the back plate off. There's usually a little bit of wax on these screws, and they can feel a little sticky to start with when you start trying to take them off. It's a good idea to have a piece of tape or a little cup or even a magnet sitting by to put those screws on so they don't roll away. They are tiny. When you get the screws out, that's when you want to start being really careful that you're not tugging on any wires too hard. So now that you've got that done, what I do, I usually take one finger and put it against one of the pole piece screws, and then take my thumb and hook it behind the leg on the pickup's base plate. And I'm going to push down on the screw and pull up on the base plate at the same time, and that allows me to pry that back off. Now, I've had this one off before, and a new pickup will have a lot of wax there, so it's going to be sticky, and you'll have to pull with a little bit of strength to get that loose. Just be sure that when it starts moving, you slack off your pressure and don't yank the wires out of the pickup. Now usually these things will pry up easiest from the end away from the cable exit. But on this one, the way they've gotten the wires up under there, it pries up on this end a lot easier, and I don't want to stress those wires out. So what I'm doing right now, the amount that I'm opening this up is greatly exaggerated from what I usually do. I usually just open that up just enough to be able to get in here and access the magnet. And there's the bar magnet right there. You can tell that it looks a lot like one of the ones we'll be replacing it with. So in order to get it out of there, there's usually a little bit of wax on it. So you'll probably need to get down in here with a screwdriver. Just be sure that you don't get your screwdriver past the plastic bobbin here and down near where any of the wires are, because those wires are very thin, and if you break one, your pickup is now a paperweight. So I'm going to get up under that pickup and I'm going to pry up just a hair until I see it move. There we go. So now it's loose and could be taken out of there. However, this is the part where you want to slow down and take things carefully, because there's more to it than just pulling one magnet out and sticking another one in. If you remember from middle school, if you were paying attention, magnets have two ends on them, a north and a south end, and that's true no matter how big or small the magnet is or how many times you cut it, it's always going to have a north and a south end on it. And the rule for attraction and repelling is that opposites attract and like repels. So what we're wanting to do when we take that magnet out is get the new magnet in oriented in exactly the same direction that the old one came out. If you put it in backwards, it could affect the way that this pickup interacts with other pickups in your guitar, and you don't want to change that. Usually. There are some reasons you might want to change that, but usually you want to get the magnet in exactly the way it came out. So the easiest way to do that is to simply stick the two magnets together and see if they line up. There are certain ways they will attach and certain ways they won't. If you're holding two bar magnets up end to end, if you try to bring them together oriented the wrong way, you notice I've got one turned north this way and one turned south this way. If you try to bring them together the wrong way, those two like ends are going to repel each other. They're not going to stick together, which means automatically you know you've got it turned the wrong way. If you have it turned the correct way, that south end is going to be attracted to the north end and they'll stick together. So it's fairly easy to know that you've got them lined up end to end, but you also have to make sure that you have them lined up back to back, because they also either attract or repel in that direction. If you got them turned the wrong way, they'll slide off of each other. So you want to be sure that you've got them lined up, one north side down and the other one's north side down, so that the opposites that are touching attract each other and stick together. So we want them turned correctly end to end and simultaneously top to bottom. And the rule that'll help you remember that, if they stick together, you have them correct. If they stick, you're right. If they're repelling, you're not. So back to our pickup here. Let's say I was going to replace the magnet that's in this pickup with this A5 pickup. If I bring this to the end and it tends to jump away, and I'm going to hold it real loose here so you can see. I'm going to try to line it up, but you can tell it's pushing it off to the side when I try to get it to stick. It's not going to line up. I have it turned the wrong way. If I bring it in the other direction, it sticks directly to the end. Likewise, if I try to drop it down from the top the wrong way, you can tell that it's pushing it off to the side. It's not letting it lay down on the pickup. I can get it everywhere but on top of that. I'm sorry, on top of the magnet. I can get everywhere but that. But if I turn it around, it sticks. So you want to be sure that you're sticking end to end and be sure that you're sticking to the top. I usually just lay it down. You can tell that that other magnet is pulling that one onto the top of itself. I usually lay it down on top like that. Get down under the one I'm removing, pry up on it. As I'm pulling that one out, as I'm pulling the old one out, I let the new one slide into the slot that's created as I remove the old one. And like I said, I usually don't have this back plate pried apart that far. I'm just doing this to show you what it looks like. And then that one should slide right in. You might need to take and pull the ribbon, the wrap, back above the end of that magnet, and then very carefully close that back down. Now, the cloth wrap will sometimes be wadded up, and you might need to get under it again and kind of pry it out and around the outside of that metal base plate. Now, this is, you know, purely aesthetic, and you can just leave it wadded up if you want to. It's not going to hurt anything, but it looks better if you pull it back out and get it set down on top like it was. And I think it tends to kind of glue everything together better as well. So once you've got that done, your screws can be put back into the back. Now, these are really small screws, and it would be really easy to cross thread one. So I always back up. I turn until I hear it pop down into the threads, and then I start tightening it up. Now, I always go diagonally when I put these in. If you put both the screws in one side, sometimes you can get one bobbin kicked up over the top of the other one, and it won't sit down flat. So I try to put them in diagonally, one side and then the other, and that way you won't get it misaligned. Both sides will be pulled down a little at a time. And I also don't tighten everything down until I have all 4 screws on, and I can feel on the other side of the pickup that the bobbins are both laying flat with respect to each other. So just make sure that everything is flat and even on that side, and then you want to tighten them up. And I'm only talking about finger tight. You don't need to, you know, put your arm into that and get it too tight. Those would be easy to strip out. So there we go. It takes, you know, maybe 5 minutes once you get it pulled out of the guitar to do that. And you might have a pickup that gives you a better feel, or more dynamics, or a little more bite, or a little more bass in, that will make your guitar absolutely perfect and everything you've ever dreamed of. Well, I hope that helps. If you like the video, hit like in the below the video and leave us a comment. Let us know what kind of magnet swatch you've done and what you found out by experimenting. We'll talk to you again later.